Hey, everybody, and welcome to another month of Heart to Heart. We run a peer virtual support platform where we bring vetted health and wellness experts to the comfort of your home to discuss topics that we think will make you better humans, more mentally able and physically capable, spiritually connected, educated in general, and inspired. We have a really wonderful guest today, and I'm so excited that these folks have spent their evening with us despite the incredible weather outside that's beckoning them outdoors. But this is going to be a really wonderful hour to connect and to learn about things that hopefully get our lives a little bit more in alignment with, the way that we can lead our best lives and become our best selves. So we have a now sort of veteran here at our program, Linda Downey. She is a founder and CEO of her own coaching business, a functional health-based transformational coaching business, actually, that empowers folks to live joyful lives that's free of stress, overwhelm, fear, things that actually lead to chronic health issues, as a lot of us can relate to, and really do block the experiences of joy and relatedness. Some of the tools and techniques helped folks to rewire their patterns and behaviors that cause stress, release stored and depleted emotions from past events and traumas, which, as we know, hinder our ability to show up as our best selves, and help the nervous system to return to healthy and calm functions, which I know as a single mom on one leg of a 2-year-old, I could definitely use. So I always learn so much every time we connect. And Linda, thank you so much for being here and for spreading your knowledge.
Oh, you're welcome. I love seeing you and then whoever shows up. I feel like Jill's been on calls that I've been on before because you look recognizable. Yeah. And anybody new, I'm just really happy to connect with you folks. It's a wonderful community.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So we're going to be talking about sort of stuck emotions, right? And how to clear that energy, clear those emotions so that you can really live your best life. And I know we've had a few sessions previously where we've really discussed energy, which I was pretty naive to. There's so much information about what that means and how that shows up in our lives. So I'm really excited for us to share a little bit more about how folks can clear that and kind of just shake off that stuff that's holding them down.
Yeah. Me too. That's what I do. So I'm grateful to be here and speak about it. And so did you want to dive in now? Are you waiting for anybody else or do
Yeah,
you?
well, everybody will trickle in as we go. So
Okay.
it's on record and we'll be capturing the wonderful content as we go. And whenever you're ready, yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we thought that a great conversation to be had tonight could be around the fact that we are all energetic beings and the energy aspect of us and the spiritual. I connect that with the spiritual aspect. So we have our three-dimensional body, but then we have our physical, our spirit, and all of that is really energy. It's just we're just energy in motion all the time. And emotions are energy in motion. So there's a big connection with the emotions that we feel as a human being and how that energy flows through us. Is that a new concept for you? Have you folks heard of that before in terms of like we're really all energy, and that's not new for anybody? Okay, good.
Well, I
So
kind of was new to it and before you educated me, and I'm sure there's other folks that'll be watching it that are naive to it.
okay, so let me speak a little bit about that, because if you've never heard it before, it's like, really? Because I really feel like I'm pretty solid, but we're really energy. And Einstein proved that 100 years ago, and there's been a lot of research in the 100 years since, and a lot of the leading educational and medical institutions, Stanford University, Harvard, University of California, San Diego, Southwestern Medical Center, they're leading the frontier right now on energy as medicine, not as medicine, using energy and balancing the energy in order to heal our physical bodies and to also transform our lives. So once Einstein really made that breakthrough, things have just gone in that direction. But honestly, if you are at all a spiritual person, there's been conversations about that for thousands of years, from Jesus in the Bible to other cultures have recognized not only that we are energy, but also the alignment of our spirit to our body. And in our Western culture, we sort of separated those, right? We sort of, I don't know, several hundred years ago went the way of the physical body. You go see a doctor. If you are upset, you talk to a psychiatrist. And if you're sad in your spirit, you go to your priest, right? And sort of like everybody, takes their part, but we're all of that. And when we get it into alignment, and so how we manage our energy and emotions, as I said, and our energy in motion, and actually the way that we manage it is with our thoughts. Our thoughts really direct our energy, so, and where it goes and how it flows. So kind of pulling all that together is life-changing for people. So do you have any questions on that before we go dive in a little more? Okay.
How do we flow it better, Linda?
How do we flow it better?
I have a dam or two in the flow, so.
Well, it's so interesting you say it like that, because to me, like when I started to really wrap my brain around this, I'm like, okay, let me like get this. The way that I visualize it is a lot like water, right? So water just wants to flow, and it'll flow until it hits a rock wall, and okay, that'll direct it in a different way. Or you can build a dam and then the water won't go anymore that way at all. And energy is a lot like that. But instead of having, a physical thing that it bumps up against, we kind of direct it. And when we don't allow emotions to flow through, so when we have an event in our life and there's an emotional response to that event, and for all of us, I think in this society in particular, we're kind of taught that certain emotions are bad, right? Like anger is bad. Grief and sadness, people, no, I'm fine. No, we shove it down. We don't really express it. And it's no different than joy or anything else. We all have a range of human emotions, but we've decided, I think, as a society, that some of them are okay and some of them are not okay, and they make us uncomfortable. And the thing is, if we would allow ourselves to process them, but many people have never had that opportunity their whole life, didn't grow up in a household where it was modeled or where it was okay to process your emotions. And so we have stuff stuck in us because it's just like the water in the dam, right? The energy will stay stuck if it's not allowed to flow through. When you see a toddler like your son, Christina, if he gets upset, he probably expresses his upset and then it's over, right? Toddlers just know naturally to do that because that is our nature, but we very quickly, oh, no, little boys don't cry, right? I'm not saying you say that, but, we very quickly, when they're very young, teach them what's okay and what's not okay, and to shut certain things down. And, I grew up in a household of children are seen and not heard. It doesn't matter what you think. We're doing what we say. When you get to be the grown-up, then you can say. So if you were upset about something, you sort of shoved it down. Or my dad used to say, you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about, which means the thing that I am crying about is not good enough to be crying about. It's not important, right? So you get the message, I guess what I'm feeling is not important. So you learn how to shove that down. Or I learned how to shove that down. But I think those are common things in a lot of households. And parents think that they're really teaching their children to be resilient and tough and all of that. But what happens is we don't know how to process our emotions. And then when a really big event happens, big emotions get stuck. So it can get stuck in organs. If you know anything about Chinese medicine, and I know like less than this much, but I've gone to an acupuncture. Have any of you guys ever gone to an acupuncturist? And if you go to one who was trained in China, at least around here where I went to two different ones, and, they were really great at, like, she would say, oh, your life force energy, your chi, the word for that is chi, your chi is very low. And I was like, what's my chi? Like, what does that mean? And so she picked up on that right away. And a lot of what they do with acupuncture, they're stimulating the nervous system, but they're also opening up blocks to allow the energy to flow. So that's what acupuncture does. But in Chinese medicine, different organs are related to different emotions. So the liver is related to anger, the kidney is related to fear, the lungs are related to grief, and the heart is also related to sadness. So, but lungs and heart are very close, right? They're right in the same kind of center area. So when emotions get stuck, it can affect those organs. You know, we say people die of a broken heart, and sometimes that's literal, right? Their partner dies and then they die of a broken heart, or just never
Fun
better.
fact, I've actually seen that in clinical practice. It's called Takotsubo's cardiomyopathy, and it literally causes dilation of the heart and heart failure. And I've seen it in practice, and it's wild that you said that, but yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, like it actually physically changing the body by the power of the thoughts and emotions, right? And I don't know how long that takes. Like, actually, I remember my grandparents, my father's parents, when I was little, it was like 1970, 71, I was maybe 6. And my grandfather died, and my grandmother got down on her knees, like when he died, and she just like willed herself into the ground. It took 6 months or whatever. I don't remember the exact time frame. It wasn't super long. And she had been healthy, no health issues, but she was going with him. So that's the power of the energy in our thoughts. So really, our physical body is just an expression of our thoughts and emotions and the energy level that we're living at. That's what's showing up in our physical body, which is why I got into this concept and into this branch with the work that I do, because I had been doing the physical part and people had good results to a degree or for a while. But when we didn't address the energy and we didn't address bringing their spirit into alignment, a year later, 2 years later, it was symptoms were back, or I feel better, but I don't really feel as great as I want to feel. And I've done like everything, people do their detoxes and their supplements and they manage their sleep. But this part people don't realize, is really the backbone in my mind, because your spirit, your energetic body, that is the connection to universal energy. You can say God, you can say the universe, you can say source. We all come from that, and that is our connection. When we start to pull ourselves away from that by staying in anger, by thinking we're not good enough, the kinds of thoughts of, this happened to me and I'll never be good enough again. I have a client that I just was on the phone with last night in a group call, and she can't have children, and she's Middle Eastern. And in her culture, that's like the woman's whole purpose is to childbear. Plus for herself, she wanted them. But now she's like, I'm totally worthless as a woman. Like, why would I even try to find a man? He's not going to want me. So those kinds of thoughts and those decisions based on what's happened to us pull us away from the core truth of who we are and access to the energy. And then we're having energy patterns that are askew and stuck and all of that. Does that make sense? I want to tell you one other story, and then we'll get into a little bit about how to move it. But do you guys remember the Reader's Digest from years ago? Christine, I didn't think you were old enough. We used to have them in the bathroom.
I am flattered, but I do.
We used to have them in the bathroom, right? So you could like read them when you're sitting on the toilet. And they had all the different segments, right? Like Humor in Uniform or Hometown Heroes or whatever they were. So there was this story once. I think I might have still been in high school. So a while ago. And so it was a true story of this guy who worked on the train, and it was the end of the day and the train was parked and there were 2 guys left. And one guy said to the other, you go ahead home. I'm just going to lock up these last couple of cars. I'll shut everything down. I'll see you tomorrow. So that guy leaves. So he knows he's the last one there. And he goes into the car and the door locks behind him. And it's the refrigeration car. So he's like, I'm locked in and this was before cell phones, because I graduated high school in 1982. So maybe if this was 1980. So no cell phones. And he's like, I'm in the refrigeration car. I'm never going to last the night. So he finds paper like in his wallet or in his pocket, and he's writing a letter to his wife, and he's documenting as the evening goes on, like, I'm freezing now and I'm shivering, and documenting the whole thing. And the next day when they got there, he was dead, but the car wasn't plugged in. It never got cold. He decided the whole thing throughout the night, kind of like your story, you know, with the broken heart, like he willed it, but he just was so fearful and so certain that I can't last the night, that his body actually experienced shivering and coldness, because he was writing about it. They found the whole thing in the letter to his wife. That always stuck with me, that story. I think it's a very powerful one about how powerful we are. So with that in mind, like, what are things that we can do? Well, first of all, is just remembering that we are energetic beings. It is our nature. So what we think of as human beings is we have to go right to the human physical way of doing something. I gotta move my body. I gotta make something happen. And our energy actually wants to flow. It is a natural process. So it's not as difficult, because people like, I don't get it. Really, if you just kind of allow, that's like the first step, just allow, because it is our nature. And in fact, we have an energy system. Have you ever heard of the energy centers? Your root center, right? There's 7 energy centers. Each center addresses certain systems in the body. Each center has certain hormones and biochemicals that it, you know, manages, and then the centers communicate to each other. It's like a third circulatory system. So we have our blood is a circulatory system. We have our lymph is also needs to move, and they both need to go in a particular direction. You don't want your blood to flow backwards, right? Lymph too has to drain down and out. Same thing with energy. We just can't see the energy, but it's the same thing. It's like a system that moves, and it wants to move in a particular way. So understanding that, like with the story of the railroad and the broken heart, how powerful our thoughts are, is to just start to be willing to use your thoughts to move your energy. So just by thinking about it and sort of thinking, notice where you have pain in your body. Or if you think of something, sorry, that's my dog rolling around on the floor. If you're thinking about something and you get upset, right? If somebody says something to you, you notice in your body, you might, like before a talk, maybe have butterflies in your stomach, or somebody says something to you and you feel it in your heart if you're hurt, or if you're fearful, it might be more like up here. Those are each related to the energy centers. So feeling, just starting to be aware in your body and tuning in, you know, like if this morning I had an argument with somebody, or my neighbor said something to me and I'm like, I can't believe he said that. Like, where do I feel it in my body? And putting my hands there and my attention and my focus is just an easy place to start. But now when energy is really trapped, like it's been in there for years, you want to move your body in order to move the energy. So the first thing is to start to put a word to it. Like, what's there? Am I angry? You know, what have I shoved down? So it's that this part of it is probably longer of a process than what we can do in this conversation, but it would be what I do with my clients is kind of talk with them and coach them. Like, let's look at, when do you remember, if you're feeling angry right now, what's your earliest memory of feeling anger like that? You know, where do you feel it in your body? And then allowing ourselves to feel it. So it might be, you know, screaming into a pillow. It might be stomping our feet like your son does, right? What does Wade do when he's angry? Throw himself on the
Oh, a
floor?
whole host of things. But yeah, he'll rip my glasses off so he get physical sometimes. We're trying to, you know, he's 2, so he's working on it. He'll throw himself down. Sometimes he'll smack his chest, he gets upset, or he'll squeeze something, but very physically demonstrative of the feeling that he has. It's unencumbered expression of what he's saying.
Yes, that's so great. So that's what you want to do, is start to identify the feelings and then allow yourself however they want to be expressed. And it's amazing. Sometimes if there's been really significant like trauma over time, people need to really process out the anger, and it might take several times of that, but allowing it to move through your body like a child would. There's a book by Dr. James Gordon called Transformation, and he's a psychologist, probably in his 70s, long career, and he works with trauma people, but people from like war-torn areas, or where like hurricanes where entire villages were wiped out, and he goes and works with the people who are left. So he gives examples in that book. Like there was one, I think it was in Haiti, when there was a hurricane, and this group of nurses, maybe 4 of them, left for lunch. And while they had left the hospital for lunch, the hurricane hit, and like the whole hospital was wiped out. Patients, employees, they were the only 4. And they were like shell-shocked, right? Like they were really, really like in frozen. And he worked with them little by little to release that. But the things that he did were dancing, and maybe initially people just don't even want to dance, but moving. But he would put music on and make them dance, and then dance, not just easy dancing, but like really crazy dancing, right? Like putting the music on for that. And then laughter. Laughter is a great way to move energy. There's also a book called Anatomy of an Illness. I can't think of the author. He was diagnosed with a very significant health issue, like cancer. I can't remember if it was, but not a good prognosis. And what he did was massive vitamin C and laughter every day. He refused the treatment that the doctors recommended, and he just like watched comedies, and like, when you go to a comedy club and you laugh so hard your cheeks hurt, like that. He made sure he had bouts of that every day, putting on his favorite comedians. So I actually listen to, like on YouTube, I listen to stand-up comedy in the mornings when I walk my dogs, right? Just like I used to, where I lived in a neighborhood, and people probably saw me like cracking up on the street. Nobody's with me, and I'm like laughing, but that kind of thing is what Dr. Gordon did with those nurses and with his other patients. And shaking. So here's another book. I'm just throwing resources out at you if you're interested in this topic and you might want to check into any of these. There's another book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And this book was written in the 70s. So one of the first forerunners of doctors in our country really recognizing like the trauma in the nervous system. So what he says is, if you have a dog or any animal, if you've seen National Geographic, they shake, right? Like a dog would when he gets out of a river, but they do it even when they're not wet, right? They just shake, or a zebra. So the premise is, if you saw a zebra out on the African plain and the lion stalking the zebra, and the zebra sees him and runs, the zebra would run, and let's just say he outruns the lion. He runs fast enough, and the lion gives up and goes somewhere else. All the zebra does is shake, which is the release, right? The physical release of the adrenaline and the trauma of running for its life. And then it just goes back to eating the grass. And there's no, why did that lion pick me? Was that the same lion as last Wednesday? Is he waiting for me around the corner? Like that's what people do, right? And animals don't do that. They just naturally, they shake it off and they return to a resting state, which is why zebras don't get ulcers. So anything that you can do shaking. So when I work with my clients, we might just start, and we'll just start, if it's new for people, we just do hands, fingers, hands. And as they, and actually before we even start that, we'll do some breath work. So do any of you do anything regularly like breath work or meditation, anything to manage your nervous system?
I do the insight timer. I'll do some meditations through that. And then I take yoga when my son doesn't have a sickness. And at the yoga, there's a lot of breathing focused, 6 breaths in, 2 hold at the top, 8 out. And also today I made it to yoga, actually, speaking of, and at the end, she'll do some kind of alternative thing that a lot of folks usually don't try. And a lot of folks are really uncomfortable with because of the perception of it. But today was laugh therapy, sort of like for 5 minutes, a group of 30 people just like took breaths and sort of just laughed. And the first time it's like forced and kind of awkward and not super loud, and everyone's kind of looking around. And then the teacher was like, close your eyes and just like laugh. And then by that point, it was actually really funny that the entire group of people are laughing, that it becomes real. And then by the third one, you almost start to feel like a state of euphoria. And like for 5 minutes, I was just like genuinely laughing, deep belly laughs about nothing. And it
Yes.
felt so good. It
Yes.
felt really
It is.
uncomfortable and awkward in the beginning, but actually like it felt really nice.
Yeah, laughing is really great. If you look at a little kid, so I have a daughter who passed away 4 years ago. She was 15 when she passed. And I have some videos, and she was a special needs kid, couldn't talk, but very communicative. And she would sometimes crack up. Like if we were out at the store and somebody fell, she would become hysterical. And that's the thing where you don't want to laugh because the person fell, but she's so hysterical, you can't even help yourself because she can't breathe. She's laughing so hard. So now you start, right? So I have some videos of that, and I'll put those on to connect with her and also to just get back into that space. And it speaks to what I said, that book, Anatomy of an Illness. He used laughter every day because it's a release. Here's another exercise around laughter, and it's called, well, I don't know exactly what it's called. I call it the 10 laugh exercise. So you just start off with one, ha, 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 right? And you add one on, 1, 2, 3. By the time you get to 10, you're cracking up.
Yeah, that's exactly what the class was today. The first one, I mean, I wish you guys could have heard it, because it seems for people that don't practice this kind of stuff, I feel like we're so rigid. I mean, as a white collar professional that was trained in the medical model, I was, or maybe it was actually just the way I was raised. I blame it on that, but who knows, how deep those veins sort of ran. But you feel like you're supposed to look a certain way and you're supposed to act a certain way, and that some things are perceived silly or awkward, or and you don't really you don't know about it because it's not mainstream, or it's not taught in your health class, or it's not told about in your doctor's offices. And so it's kind of like taboo still sometimes, which is so archaic because it's been around for a while, right? It's like there's a deficit in the knowledge about the true like science and the progression of all of this. And so people feel uncomfortable because they're wondering how they're being perceived. But it's so true. If you guys could have seen this, I felt a little weird. She was like, we're all just gonna laugh for 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, looking around, and the first couple was super awkward. And then by the end, not only were we all hysterically laughing, cheeks hurting, but we were like connected with one another in this like vulnerable serenity that like it wasn't just that we felt lighter. And maybe it was my own experience, but I felt way more connected to other people, because there was just, you can't be laughing about nothing in a group of people like that and still have feelings of judgment or animosity or any of these things. It goes away. It doesn't matter what you look like. It's all about how you feel. I'm going to do it more. I really love it, Linda. I didn't even know about it as a channel. And people need to try it, I think, in order to experience the release that it kind of has. Because if I was just hearing it and I hadn't experienced it literally this morning, I would be like, really? Like, can you really just release stuff by making yourself laugh 10 times? It's true, though.
It is true. I muted myself because my dog's been barking that whole time. So if she starts again, I might have to go get her. But it is true. You can just, it's what we naturally want to do. We close it down, right? That's what children know to do until they're taught not to. So the laughing is one, but what you can do is start with breath work. And so the breath model, there's hundreds of different kinds of breath work. And to me, breath, this is not to me, this is what I've learned, and it just makes sense. Breath is God, right? The moment we stop breathing, we are not alive anymore. Breath is our access to life force energy, which is God. God, universal energy, is our breath. And we hold our breath. We want to have a flat stomach, so we breathe in a particular way. You've had Dr. Amy on, so you probably have talked about that, right? But when you do a longer exhale, which was what you just exampled, right? What was it? 6 inhale, hold, and then 8 out.
6 in, 2 hold, at 8 out.
Yeah. Anytime you do a longer exhale, you're blowing off more carbon dioxide than you take in at a certain count, and then you blow off longer. And that longer carbon dioxide release really triggers the the nervous system to calm down. And the body knows, if I were running from a lion right now, I couldn't breathe like this. I must be safe. Right? But when we're breathing not deeply and we're worried and we're thinking, we stay in a breathing pattern that tells the body you're not okay. And so then the nervous system stays in that place. So starting with a couple of deep breaths, right? And the other thing is grounding your feet to the earth, because in our energy centers, the bottom center is how we are grounded to the earth. So I see somebody is in the waiting room. Do you see that, Tina? Okay. I didn't know if I just saw it or not. So grounding yourself is a way to also help yourself feel safe. Some deep breaths. And then you can start with the shaking. And I just like kind of imagine what animals do naturally, or little children do. But to make it be easy, we start with just, our hands, fingers, hands, then our wrists. And sometimes people only want to do that much, wrists maybe into their arms. If they feel comfortable and they're able to, they may want to start to do their whole body, their rib cage, their head, if that's okay for them, and even stand up and, shake one leg, or you don't have to stand up. You can just stick a leg out and shake the leg. And then at some point, get the whole body. It's kind of like the hokey pokey, right? Have I been muted that whole time?
No, I tried to unmute myself and muted you. So sorry, but we heard hokey pokey, and I was trying to unmute because I was going to say, does it work if you shake your leg and it's not attached?
Yeah. Well, that would work. Sure. That would make it be fun, right? Like, let's just have fun with this life I've got. So let me take my leg off and shake it. And that's my version of the hokey pokey, right? It would make you laugh. Like, that puts the emotion in a whole different place around it. So that's a physical way to move the emotions, is actually moving your body. Exercise, any kind of movement, but that shaking, dancing, do the twist, whatever like that. Just pick some dances and put that on. Laughing. And then there's breath work that actually you can do to move energy up through your energy centers. It's a little more challenging than the regular breath work, but I'm happy to share it with you guys if you want to just learn it, and then it'll be up to you, okay, if you want to try it. So like I said, there's 100 different kinds of breath work. You can go on YouTube and you could search. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof, the Wim Hof method? So Wim Hof is W-I-M and his last name is H-O-F. He's got some great beginner breath on YouTube. There's fire breath of fire, which is really using your abdominal muscles. So they have different purposes. Sometimes they're for relaxation, like the long exhale, the slow, deep breaths, but sometimes they're to move energy. So the one that I want to share with you now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit first, and then I'll try to go through it with you. It's hard to talk about it and do it, so I'm going to talk about it first. If you think of your 7 energy centers, so the root energy center, the bottom one, and this is also called your chakras. If you've heard of it as chakras, chakra just means wheel, and the energy moves like a wheel. So it moves like a wheel in a particular direction, and then it moves up. So they're wheels of energy, just like our blood flow, right? Is different than a wheel, but it's the same thing. So the bottom one, the root one, which is responsible for our reproductive organs. So there's all of the biochemistry and hormones that would go to that, right? Everything that you would think of. And that actually exists like right in the perineum. So the muscles that you would use to cut off going to the bathroom, both front and back, right? You would pull those muscles up and in. That would stimulate and engage at the root center. Then the next one up is just below the belly button. It's called It's called your sacral. So think of like the sacrum at the tailbone, kind of like through your body there. Digestive, the hormones there. So the hormones for the root one are the reproductive, right? Like the ovaries and the testes. For the sacral, the hormones there are like the pancreas, the hormones that govern blood sugar, digestion, blood sugar, also some sexuality there. So it governs parts of our body and parts of our life. The third center moving up is your solar plexus, which is between your lower rib cage and your belly button. I know you can't see it, but it's right between here, like right here. So it's above the belly button. And that is your solar plexus. And that the hormones there, that's where the adrenals are. So the hormones there are the fight and flight hormones. That's the center that governs our self-esteem, our competitiveness and aggression in the world. What our adrenals get turned on, we're in fight or flight. Those three centers have everything to do with survival, right? Because what do we need to do? We need to, as a species, we need to reproduce, we need to feed our children, and we need to stake our place in the world. So those three centers relate to those parts of our life, to the human aspect of surviving, to those parts of our body. Does that make sense? I didn't even think I was going to go into this, but I kind of feel like if we're going to practice this breath work, I want you to understand what we're doing and where
I
we're
love
moving.
it. I love when you just take the way that it flows. It's very symbolic of the entire subject of the matter.
Of energy. Yeah. Oh, we're going this way now. Okay, good. So the next, when you reproduce and have a family and community and you're well fed, this would be a balanced energy flow. And then you have enough food, so you're not in survival and you don't feel threatened out in the world. You feel like you have your place and you can, you're safe. So when those three energy centers are safe, which most people don't feel safe, right? So the energy gets stuck there. It's not moving because people don't feel like they feel like they're fighting for money, or they don't feel safe in some places, but of their life. But if those three energy centers are balanced, you feel safe in the world. So now the energy is free to move up into your heart. That's the next one. The gland here in the heart is the thymus. So the thymus gland is right under the breastbone, heart center. The thymus gland is the master gland for the immune system. So the thymus gland governs like 1,400 different chemicals that trigger the immune system to turn on and shut off to keep you healthy. So if energy is staying down in the bottom three because you're stuck in survival, you're stuck in fight or flight, you didn't shake it off, right? You didn't shake it off and you're stuck in fight or flight. Energy is not free to move up into the heart space, which is going to then affect how your immune system is handled, right? Because the thymus gland, each center has its own gland of the endocrine system. And so that's the heart center there. And then the next center is the throat. The gland there is the thyroid. The thyroid is the master like thermostat of the body. The thyroid is always gauging what's going on and what cells need what. That's why, if you have thyroid issues, you're cold, your metabolism is affected because the thyroid is always responding to what's going on in your body. It's also where you speak your truth. So if you are well balanced, you feel safe, you have enough food, you have good community, you know you're standing in the world, you're feeling love in your heart. Now you want to share that love with people. You want to talk to people about who you are and what's important to you. When you're not balanced, so like back down to the solar plexus, that might be somebody who's either super aggressive in the world, like road rage out on the road, or has low self-esteem and never speaks up and is kind of mousy and people pleaser, right? So they're not really tapped into feeling love and connected to people. Once you get to the fourth center and up, that's where your spiritual connection is. The bottom three is very much human survival. From 4 up, it's much more of our spiritual, energetic qualities, feeling love and compassion, sharing that. speaking our truth, just being authentic, not shutting ourselves down. Does that make sense? And that's the thyroid. Then the next one is number 6, which is right in here, right? That's the pituitary gland. The pituitary is the master gland of the endocrine system. So the pituitary is telling the thyroid and the thymus and the adrenals and the pancreas and the reproductive organs. The pituitary is sending signals out to all the rest of the endocrine system. So if you're not balanced in moving your energy through, now you have hormonal, wacky hormones, because that pituitary is sending all kinds of messages. And then from a spiritual perspective, this is wisdom, right? That's where your third eye is. That's where you're getting, intuition, hits from God about good choices to make, things like that. So if you're not connected and you're stuck in fight or flight, your energy is stuck down in those bottom 3, you're missing your connection to God, you're missing the experience of love, you're not authentically speaking. Is my camera like choppy? Oh, good. Okay. It looks like it to me. And then the last one is the top, right? And that's the pineal gland. That's the last gland. And civilizations for centuries have recognized that the pineal gland is kind of like the radio antenna to God. So when we are asking, when you say a prayer and you're asking for, guidance, and you want to, if we really understood how to manage our energy, it would be through the pineal gland that we would connect to source energy. So that's at the top. And that's really where we start to open up to be our most spiritual self in connection. So the more you move your energy up, the more you leave survival and fight or flight and all the things about being a human, the fear, the struggle, and you start to be connected, happy, joyful, insightful, wisdom, all that. So keeping that in mind, what we're going to do is use our breath to pull energy up from the bottom and try to get energy from our survival centers where it is mostly stuck for people. And we're going to try to use our breath and our muscles, our internal muscles, to squeeze it up to get it to the pineal gland at the top. So the way that we're going to do that, we'll first exhale everything out as best as you can, because then we're going to inhale. Think of like sucking up through a straw, like, right? So we're going to exhale first. And then after you exhale, this is what I want you to imagine. Think of, of a tube of toothpaste. When that tube starts to get old and you want to like get all the toothpaste out, you start at the bottom and you roll it, right? And as you roll it tight, you see the tube like fill up. And then you can push the toothpaste out the top. If you didn't roll the bottom and you just started squeezing, you'd get some up, but some would go down, right? It wouldn't really move. So we're using our muscles, the perineum, those Kegel muscles. You're going to start, and that's like the first roll of the toothpaste tube. So you're going to pull that up and in. Then you're going to, from there, you're going to pull your lower abdomen in, like pull it up and in towards your spine. And then you're going to pull your torso up, right? In your upper abdomen. And then you're going to pull the whole time. You're going to be inhaling. So like in my mind, I imagine I'm moving air with my inhale, and my muscles are the toothpaste tube up into my heart, up, and then I'm going to lift my shoulders, head back. I'm going to allow it to move up my throat. And I use my hands. To guide it up into the top of my head. Okay. So I'll show it to you once, and it looks a little scary or weird, but no weirder than laughing. Apparently laughing's weird too, right? So we're just going to be weird. So I'm going to show it to you, because when you really are squeezing your muscles, like you were trying to really move energy and you're pulling with your breath, your body shakes. And that is a movement of energy. Okay. So remember, exhale everything out through your nose. Close your mouth, everything out. Then you bear down, you pull up, and I'm going to start inhaling, and I'm going to use my hands. I'm going to guide it with my hands up to the top, and then I'm going to hold it. You kind of get a little dizzy, and then you exhale. Okay. So let's try it together. Sit up tall. If you can ground your feet, because it always feels good to be grounded. and you're going to exhale out your nose. Now I can't talk and do it at the same time. So you're going to exhale out your nose, blow everything out as much as you can, blow it all out, a little more, really blow it. Okay. Now start to inhale slowly, pull the perineum up, inhale, pull it up with your hands, move into your lower abdomen, pull that in and back. Start to move your hands, inhale, inhale like through a straw, move it up into your chest, lift your shoulders back, keep inhaling all the way up. And then you're going to hold it there. You're going to hold it. You're going to hold it. You're going to hold it, and then exhale and release. Okay. That was one time, usually 6, 7, 8 times as a process. And then you can go into a relaxation. You feel a little dizzy. That's when you pull that up and it hits the brain. Listen, that's all that energy that we use down at the bottom. Orgasm, give birth. It's a lot of energy that's stuck down there, right? A lot of powerful energy that we don't use it. So you pull that up, the energy for digesting food, right? The energy for being in a fight, right? When it gets to the third center, that's fighting or going to work and, all the physical things of your life. That's all a lot of energy. So we're pulling that up and out. And when you start to balance your energy centers, like do that on a regular basis, whether it's every day or a few times a week. And you also, maybe on alternate days, do the things like what's the thing that happened to me in 9th grade that I never told anybody? And I've been, it made me so mad and I never allowed myself to cry about or to be angry about. So letting yourself feel that, it's not going to take long. It'll move through dancing, laughing. And then you start to be at a place where energy is balanced and you can start to really tune into your spiritual self instead of your human self, which is just always stuck in survival.
I feel like I could stay on the session for like 4 hours.
Yeah, it's good stuff, right?
I have a couple of questions, and I don't know if anyone else does. Linda, thank you. So folks that do inversions, right? Like in yoga, folks want to do headstands or even just lift their legs or do like I used to love and still do handstands. I was a gymnast, and there's something addictive, I used to call it, about being inverted. Is that a conductor of energy? Sort of the top becomes the bottom when you're inverted, right? So like, is that helpful in
I would think so. I don't know a lot about that, and it's not anything that I've ever done, but if you just think about it logically, and really there is no mystery, like it's just how we're made and energy flows. So when you're inverted, blood flows the opposite way. Isn't that like why people do it a lot, is to help their legs and their venous return and all that? So why wouldn't energy also move? So that wasn't like a hard-boiled answer, because I don't know, but I'm just thinking logistically and how I understand it. Yeah, why
so
not?
it's time to do handstands, everybody. Chronic fatigue is a thing that plagues so many people, especially, I mean, we're here as sort of the disabled community, and there's extra energy that's exerted in just ambulating, and there's all these additional medical layers of like doctor's appointments and trauma and PTS and all of these things that chronic pains and it's one version of other, there's so much struggling in the world, but because of it, it manifests as adrenal fatigues and chronic fatigues, whether they're related or unrelated. When you're doing these kinds of energy clearing modalities as an adjunct to healing, what kinds of like frequency or like, how do you had mentioned like several times a day or every other day, how would you recommend folks to do that if they're trying to complement their energy levels or their just overall vigor?
I would start every morning, whatever time you get up. If you need to just make it be 10 minutes earlier, get up and set with your intention, with your thoughts, and with your breath, your body. So again, there's so many different kinds of breath work. You might get up and do like breath of fire is like you use your abdomen and you're going, back and forth, and it's very invigorating. Or at the end of the day, if you want to do the slowing down type of breath, or I teach heart math. I'm a heart math practitioner, so I teach heart math tools. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. That's heart focused breathing. It's managing emotions and the heart and the breath to help people with anxiety. We could do that on another thing because we won't have time tonight. But I would just say, put it into your day. Listen, breath is life, right? This is your life. So is it worth the extra 10 minutes to manage your life in a way that's going to actually move you out of fatigue? I have a friend, I did a breath workshop with her, a 4-week, she really led it because she's really an expert, but she talked about how she had like a melanoma on her end of her nose and the doctor wanted to cut it out. And she was like, yeah, no, you're not cutting off the end of my nose. Breath work. She swears to God, it went away. She did nothing. It's been gone. It never came back. She never had it treated. She did breath work and visualized and sent energy there, and it healed. And people who are really into energy, and I am, will tell you that what is in the energy field first is what shows up in the body. So when you manage your energy field, the body, the physical body will follow suit. And it will heal from different things, so it's not like a blanket promise I can make because it has to be a commitment. But there's literally thousands of testimonials of people who, listen, that's what Jesus did. Jesus, he did laying on of hands. He moved people's energy and they believed it, because that's the thing. That's why we talked about first is I'm not good enough. Now I'm not worthy. Now I'm not lovable. All of those things, if that's what you're believing, you're going to have those results in your body. I'll end real quick with the story in the Bible where Jesus healed the blind man. And I don't know a lot about the Bible, but I know this one. He healed the blind man. And after he healed him, he said to him, go now and sin no more. The blind man said, I was blind and now I see. He said, go now and sin no more. The language at the time, the word that he used that was sin. In modern day, sin means like break the rules, right? Like we have these rules and if you break them, you've sinned. At the time when Jesus used it, sin meant don't miss your mark. Like if you were shooting an arrow, don't miss your mark. Don't miss your mark in your beliefs is what Jesus was saying. You've been missing the mark and believing the wrong things. Go now and don't believe those anymore. If you do, your blindness will come back. So it's all about the thoughts. The thoughts move the energy. So what thoughts are you having? Manage that energy and the physical body will follow.
Such good stuff and amazing wisdom. Does anybody have any questions here? And a lot of folks are going to be seeing this after, but I just wanted to open it up to have them have access to you.
I have one. When you're going through the stuff, I mean, everything you're doing, I see an emotional therapist that does actual massage that actually opens up all the areas in your body, which shocked me. I didn't know how he did it, but he did it. Like right now, I'm under a stress level that's extremely high between selling my house, building a house, working full time. And how do we know what area is blocked? I guess, does our body give us a trigger and say, oh, it's,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's why I said, listen to your body. And that's why I wanted to point out what the energy centers are and what they govern, because if you're having an issue in that area of your life or an issue in those systems of your body, that's a clue. There's an energy imbalance there, right? So, so your body will tell. Our body is the conduit between our spirit and our thoughts. The physical body, will be telling you what you need to know, what's out of alignment. Your spiritual self knows, and your body tries to communicate it. So by getting more and more in touch with your body, putting your hands, if I'm working with a client and they say they're upset, I'll say, where do you feel that in your body right now? Did it get tight in your lower back? But the power of your thoughts, right? So going back to those first 3 human survival centers, you can in the afternoon call your partner and say, I can't wait to see you tonight. I have been thinking about you all day, and boom, you're turned on, right? Like you can think about it. You're not even with that person and now you're turned on. Or a meal. You watch a commercial, or you start thinking about tomorrow night's dinner. You're going out to your favorite restaurant and you start salivating, and all of a sudden you feel hungry. Or you see a Burger King commercial at 10 o'clock at night and you weren't even hungry, but now you have to get it, right? So our thoughts can turn on those centers, and the centers will tell you where your attention is and where your energy is and where energy is stuck. The same thing with the adrenals, right? So those bottom three, I gave you the first two, but then the third one, if you're really mad at somebody, wait till tomorrow, when I get into that meeting, I am going to lay them out. Like you think about it, and then you feel that in your, you feel that in your gut, you feel your blood pressure go up, the adrenals got turned on, and all you did was think. You're not even in the meeting. You're not even in an argument, but you're right there. You might as well be, right? So that's the power of the thoughts, and the body will tell you. And
Yeah.
Tina just put a link in there about that.
Yeah, it's the physical manifestations, right? It's like the areas that you're sensing the tenseness, the tightness, the physical pains, the medical problems, right, that kind of stuff. It's funny that you said it in the last comment, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time because we're over here. But I had adrenal insufficiency, like medically diagnosed adrenal insufficiency, and like absolute poor immunity, recurrent illnesses over and over and over in the setting of a significant amount of life stress. And so I now am going to be looking into the solar plexus and thymus chakras that you mentioned, because I think there's still more healing to do in that. But fascinating avenue of therapy. Any other questions here for Linda in this group?
I just want to tell you, and I didn't intend to share this with you, but I'm going to share it with you. I'm starting a spiritual mastermind, and the first 3 months are going to be all about removing the blocks and the beliefs that have us blocked and be separated. And then if people want, I have it mapped out in my head for a full year. It's a spiritual mastermind for a full year. And then we're going to each month go through each energy center, balance it. We're going to be doing, other kind of spiritual work and meditation. So if anybody's interested in that, it's actually starting at the end of the month, and you can just do the first 3 months. And then I know that some people are going to be like, I want to do the whole year. And some people are like, I got what I wanted out of the first 3 months. So it's an option, but it's all of that. That's what we're going to be doing. So
it's really helpful for those that are watching here or on any of our social media platforms or YouTube. If you want information or want to get in touch with Linda about this program, other programs, coaching, any of the vast knowledge that she has, you can visit lindadowneycoaching.com. I'll put it in the description on everything, but it's Linda, DOWNEY, coaching.com. And if you're an amputee that could benefit from these services or any of the programs that she runs, please reach out to Les Legmore Hart, who can be potential funding sources for these kinds of complements to wellness.
Yes, and I would totally give anybody in your organization, a completely different rate than what the regular folks would do. Yeah. You and I can talk about that after.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for visiting, both here in person and also through our social channels. I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us, and thank you, Linda, so much for sharing your knowledge. If you have questions, feel free to send it our way. We hope that you all join us the second Thursday of every month for Heart to Heart, where we have all sorts of different folks coming on, but all good. You can bet on that. 6 p.m. Eastern every second Thursday. You can register on Les Legmore Heart to Heart in the About section. Anyway, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Spread light and just love one another. Love yourself, love one another, change your internal dialogue, and start moving that energy up and being an antenna, right?
There you go, sister. Yes.
All right,
Thank
bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Good night.